I'm Garrett Davis, CEO and founder of G. Davis Productions and Films and G. Davis TV. Welcome to the screening of new episodes of our drama series, Forget Me Not, presented by the Keck School of Medicine. Over the next 2 weeks, we will release 2 more new episodes of Forget Me Not, followed by a healthy conversation with various professionals from the Alzheimer's community, like Dr. Doris Molina Henry, Assistant Professor, Department of Neurology, Keck School of Medicine; Dr. Crystal Glover, Associate Professor, Rush Alzheimer's Disease Research Center; Stephanie Johnson-Monroe, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Access with Us Against Alzheimer's. And today, after you view this new episode of Forget Me Not, we will have a healthy conversation with Beverly Berry, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion with the Alzheimer's Association. Right now, sit back and enjoy this episode of Forget Me Not, followed by a healthy conversation with Beverly Berry.
Guess who made the high school cheerleading squad?
Yeah. I knew you was gonna make it.
Thanks, Dad.
I'm proud of you. You know
Thank
what I mean?
you.
Doing all that where your dad, I can't do the steps. You know you had it.
I know. You are coming to see me, right? That's all I want to know. You know, you already know Mom is going through a lot, and I need to see my dad up there cheering me on.
Listen, you know my schedule is crazy, so I can't make no promises.
Okay.
But I'm gonna try my best to be there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, how about you get my camera out the study? I'm gonna see you at the door. And I'm gonna take some pictures of my favorite cheerleader.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right.
Okay, too much, all right.
It's about time. You look like everything from QVC in here. I know, girl. You would have thought he upgraded his new wife, but that's a lie. I know, girl. No. I mean, I will once. Girl, let me call you back. I'm gonna tell you about everything. I promise. I will. Okay. Okay. Bye. I'm sorry for the late notice, but I can't do this anymore. He deliberately do not listen to me. Yes, it's your turn. I did my due diligence by having him. Now it's your turn to raise him.
Wait. Let's slow down. Somebody tell me what's going on here.
Ask your son. While he's failing all his classes, he's staying out all night with his friends on the weekends. And get this, he just got a part-time job that he got fired all in the same week.
That job was lame anyway.
You see? You see?
Just watch your mouth. Look, Yolanda, right now, we just need to slow down and talk this through. You know, it's a lot going on with Renee and her father, and his Alzheimer's is getting worse. Right now is not a good time. I just can't do it right now.
I'm sorry about your father-in-law, but with all due respect, this is your son. Now it's going to be your problem. You have to raise him. He cannot live with me anymore. He's living with you. And that's it. I'm out.
So you just gonna leave?
What else can I do?
You make all the final decisions?
Bye.
TJ. I'm gonna say this one time. As long as you living in my house, you're gonna follow my rules. And trust me, there are some rules.
It's not like I want to be here.
You see? That's why your mama kicked you out, that mouth.
Oh, and so I guess you're doing me a favor by not letting me go homeless, huh?
I'm gonna say this one last time. As long as you live in my house, you will respect me, my wife, and your sister. And you're gonna pull up your grades, and you're gonna get a job. Cause I'm tired of paying for this phone.
You can't take my phone.
And what you gonna do? Yeah, that's what I thought. And when you get to your room, I'm coming to take that P5. Yeah, you can go. Boy.
Oh, look at you. Thank you so much. I just appreciate everything you do.
Hey, when we gonna eat around here?
Daddy, you just ate.
I ain't no such a thing.
Yes, you did. Here you go. Let's
Gotta
give you
take
your
some
medicine.
medicine.
Yes, I'm gonna give you your medicine.
Hey, Tammy, put some on my plate.
Mr. June, you just ate.
Hello? Mom, look, you need to come home right now. Okay? Look, TJ and his mother are here and it's looking like he's staying with us. Wait a minute. Did you say TJ was, why do you think TJ is moving in? And did you say Yolanda was in my house? Where's your father? He just walked Miss Yolanda back to her car and TJ is here with his bad attitude. Mom, please come home. Okay, I'll be home in a few minutes. Tell your father to call me as soon as he gets back in, okay? All right, bye.
What's wrong?
Looks like TJ is coming to move in with us.
Did you know about that?
I remember Theo mentioning something like that, but I just forgot from a long time ago.
Y'all forgetting a whole lot of stuff. Look over here at me. Y'all forgot to feed me. I'm hungry. Y'all fix me something to eat. I'm ready to eat. Oh, did you forget?
Daddy,
When we gonna eat?
you already ate.
I ain't ate damn near 2 o'clock. I ain't had nothing to eat all day. Hell.
Hot mess.
Thank you, Jesus.
I don't know what you calling Jesus for. You need to be saying amen. If you say amen over grace, that means some food right here that I can eat. Y'all ain't gave me nothing I'll eat all day.
I'll go get it.
Thank you.
Give me something sweet.
I'm gonna get you something.
What you got?
I'm gonna get you a donut.
That's right. Give me a donut. Give me one of them lemon fields.
Mr. Bill, come on in. Nate's been expecting you.
Hey, Sammy, good to see you.
Good to see you. How you doing? Hi, Mr. Bill.
What's going on there, June?
Who is that?
June,
Huh?
put your glasses on. It's me, Mr. Bill.
Oh, yeah, what's up there, Bill? You
know
always
you.
moving my darn brown glasses. Why you moving my glasses?
You blind as a bat without them.
Hey, listen. Me and Mr. Bill was in Vietnam together.
That's right.
Right, we jumped out of airplane.
Oh,
Sure
yeah.
did.
Oh, yeah. Way back in the day. Look like you can use a shape up or something.
When you get here?
I just got here. You know I just got here. Look, Renee gonna take you to get ready.
Okay.
I'm gonna take you to the barber shop, okay? Get your hair cut. Shape up. You need one.
Renee's so lucky to have you around helping with children. She has a lot on her, you know?
Oh, look, June's my best friend. It's not even a question. Whatever they need for me to do, I'm going to do it.
Awesome.
Tammy, let me ask you a question. What do you know about clinical trials?
What type of clinical trials are you referring to, Mr. Bill?
Well, to be honest with you, every time I be hanging out with June, I get to thinking about myself. You know, it's like something ain't right.
Really? In what way?
Well, look, I'm only 4 years younger than June. And every time I forget where I put my keys or I miss an appointment or something, first thing run through my mind is, do I have Alzheimer's?
Mr. Bill, you do spend a lot of time with June, so it's only natural that you're going to feel that way.
Look, we have to do something about this.
We?
Yes. Do you know that my people, African Americans, have a higher prevalence of Alzheimer's related dementia at 13.8%? Guess who's next on the list? Your people, Hispanics, at 12.2%. Tammy, we have to do something about this. Look, this Alzheimer's is affecting our people more than it is any others. Look here. Look at these pills here. You see these? See all these pills that you be giving June?
What's your point?
They all been through a clinical trial to ensure that the results are relevant to the people in the community.
Okay, I think I get it. So then if our people are not represented in a clinical trial of a new medication, that means that we won't know if the results are going to be the same.
Now you're getting my point. That's that. Now you got it. That's good. At least somebody understand what I'm trying to get to.
I got you.
It's too Alzheimer's is too important. We need to educate our people.
Yeah, we do. Mr. June should be coming up. Where's the name June? She's getting late.
June. Hey, boy. Come on, let's go and take your haircut.
Hey, when you get here, Bill?
All right, I just got here. Look, I want to tell you we'll ride with me, okay? We're going to go down to the barber shop.
Yeah, get a haircut.
Yeah.
And you can stop me to get me something to eat.
Well, whatever you
They
need.
don't feed you around here.
What you want to eat? What you want to eat?
Apples.
Apples? How about some solid food, man? Strawberries. Oh, yeah.
And them pretty women holding a stick with something on the end, waiting in the face.
Come on, man. See you later, Dave.
All right, y'all have a good time. Bye, Daddy.
Thank you.
I love my daddy, but now and then, I need a break.
Are you okay?
Why hasn't Theo called or texted me? We just don't need another mouth to feed right now.
Hey, it's okay. Just take a deep breath, okay?
It's just a lot, Tanny.
I know. You have to take a step back and assess where you are with taking care of your father, being a wife, a mother, and your duties at work, Nay.
But I feel like I'm about to break.
We're gonna get through this together because we're gonna be here for each other, okay?
I don't know what I would do without you and Mr. Bill. You guys do a lot. Thank you.
You know, Mr. Bill got me thinking though.
About what?
When I sit back and I watch all the love that everyone has for your father, and the pain that we feel when we go through just seeing him battle with Alzheimer's, it makes me want to do something so that our kids don't have to deal with this with us when they get our age.
Makes you want to do what?
Clinical trials.
I don't know about this, Daddy.
Okay. We can talk about this later. Go check up on your family. I'll wait around here until June and Bill get back.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
What you shaking your leg for, son? You nervous?
Nah. You're shaking your leg too.
What I tell you about running your mouth in here? You don't pay no bills. Hey, Brenda. I need you to do a favor for your dad. I need you to tutor your brother in math.
Dad, I have practice in an hour.
I'm not saying you gotta do it right now. I'm just saying that I expect for you to tutor your brother in math.
So why am I being punished for his academic inadequacies brought on by his lack of self-worth as an attempt to always prove himself?
Can you translate that for me?
Don't worry about it. I'll do it later. Your sister's going to law school when she graduates. Thank you. I want you to have him in math, okay? I owe you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay? All right. Thank you.
Hey.
Hey, Mom.
How are you, sweetie? Good. Well, hello to my bonus son. How are you, TJ?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to see you.
Sure.
Can you give me and your father a minute? I'll have dinner ready in about an hour.
All right.
Look, I know what you're gonna say, and I promise
No, you don't. Life is too short, and regardless of the time, your son needs you in his life.
you know, you never cease to amaze me. I love you.
I love you too. But look, just make sure that this just does not bring any more stress on me.
I got you.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
And we'll cook that dinner.
Okay, I'm going to cook right
I want
now.
them chicken wings cooked crispy.
Chicken wings?
Chicken wings.
I'm gonna do a little steak.
Oh, oh, oh.
So Brenda, you gonna help me with my math homework?
Consider this your one and only time in my room. Just go ahead and start your worksheet. I'll check it later.
I appreciate your help. I know I have my own set of issues, so I don't mean to cause you any stress, but I kind of wish I was like you, you know? I wish I had both parents living with me.
TJ, life is not like it seems. Just please learn to be grateful and thankful throughout your process.
Hi, this is Garrett Davis. Welcome to another edition of Healthy Conversations. And with us today is a good friend of mine. I call her my sister. Her name is Beverly Berry with the Alzheimer's Association. So at this point, let's welcome Beverly to the show. Beverly, hello.
Hello. Very good. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. So before we get into the report that I think a lot of people want to know about in terms of, how does racism affect memory loss? I want people to know you and how you got your start. So you're from a little small town in Alabama, is that correct?
That's correct.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I am from a little small town in Alabama called Tuskegee, Alabama. And I'm sure some of your listeners may know about Tuskegee. There's a lot of rich history that's there. We have Tuskegee University. We have the Tuskegee Airmen, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver. So all that great history that lives in Tuskegee. And then others know Tuskegee about or through the dark of the Tuskegee syphilis study. And so that's where I grew up. That's where I got my beginning. Tuskegee is a small rural town. There isn't a hospital there. Once upon a time there was. But I remember when my brother was born and when there was another family emergency or medical emergency with my brother, having to take him to the hospital. And because there wasn't a hospital in Tuskegee, my parents had to drive 25 miles to the nearest hospital to have my brother, and even when that emergency came up. So I grew up seeing the inequities, the limited access to healthcare in the community. I grew up hearing about my friends whose grandparents or great grandparents were a part of the Tuskegee study. So it's embedded in me. And Tuskegee is also where I learned and I developed a passion for public health. It's where I learned that having access to healthcare is so important. And it really gave me my start because through programs at Tuskegee University, I saw mentors, I saw doctors, researchers, nurses that poured into me and said that you can do something to bridge this health inequity gap in your community. And so from there, I just developed a passion for it. I continued to learn more about the importance of healthy living, the importance of even having access to medical care. And it just developed a passion in me that has landed me to where I am today.
Wow, it's amazing, in my work as I travel around, I talk about trying to get African Americans and people of color involved in the clinical trials. We always talk about Tuskegee and I've been knowing you for close to going on 2 years now. Never knew that, you had family members who went through that study.
Yeah, so not my, well, I will say this, not my family members personally, but I grew up in that community where I had who had family members,
Mhm.
grandparents, great grandparents that were a part of that study. So that's where I learned about the study and even how important it is to participate in clinical trials, even at a young age.
Mhm.
That's a part of that history that's there.
So let's talk about your college years. So where did you go to school?
I went to college at the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
And what was your major?
My major was community health education.
So what led to that major?
Yeah. So again, I think it all goes back to Tuskegee.
Hmm.
It all goes back there. Just being in an environment where there was limited access to medical treatment and healthcare, and seeing that in the community, but also having work with me, mentors in that community to work with me to see why this is important.
Hmm.
And that even at a young age, as I'm thinking about a career that I want to take on, showing me that this is a path for me. And again,
Hmm.
having those people that look like me, that
Right.
are researchers, that have master's degrees or advanced degrees, and teaching me how this can be a career trajectory for me, and as well as a way to give back to my community. So it stemmed, all roads lead back to Tuskegee.
It's amazing. I come from a small town, Warrenton, North Carolina, about 40 minutes north of Raleigh. And that's where the civil rights of the environmental movement was birthed. And I didn't know at the time when I was, walking with Joseph Laurie. I didn't know who Joseph Laurie was. I didn't know at the time when we was protesting because we did not want a landfill in our community. And so the basketball team, we marched, honestly, to get out of school that day. And I remember Beverly being handcuffed to Joseph Laurie when we was putting that little paddy wagon, and I began to cry. I was a junior high school, but I'd never been arrested before. And Joseph Laurie looked at me and said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Man, I don't want to go to jail. I don't." He said, "Why are you here?" And when I couldn't answer him, I'll never forget what he said. He said, "Never go anywhere unless you know where you're going."
Mm.
And that statement became so profound. We go a lot of places, we do a lot of things, but do we know where we're going? Do we know why we're there? And as I got older, and I was at Fayetteville State, and I was at the radio station, I heard this voice. I said, "That sounds like Joseph Laurie," and it was because we was playing Martin Luther King Speaks. And when I heard Joseph Laurie speak, I'm like, I know him. I was like, I was handcuffed to him. He's like, but it. Even the things that I did in my small community, I remember driving from 30 miles for my mother just to go to wash our clothes. I remember, we had to drive 30, 40 miles to the nearest hospital. But none of that stuff never registered to me until I got to college, until I saw some other things, and I began to see, think about my community, and it was like, my community doesn't have this. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
My community doesn't have that. And so do you remember when you got to college, where there's a time when something clicked and you began to compare your upbringings to where you were in this, we'll call it a big city?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I, like you, as you grow older and you experience and you go other places, you realize especially growing up in a small town, all the things that you don't have or that you wish you had, right? And so when I got to UAB and we started talking about, this is where I had a deeper dive into health disparities, health inequities, how Black Americans were disproportionate in just about every chronic disease category. And so it was at that moment that, wow, there's this health disparity, health inequity gap in my own community where I was born and raised. And so it really put the pieces together that that more has to be done. And it's such a complex area when you think about access and disparities because it's so deeply rooted in historical instances and events. And so it was when I went to college that I learned more about that. And I saw those elements in the community that I came from. And I realized too at that moment that these were all of the things that my mentors were preparing me for. And these were the things that they were talking about. And in that instance, it made sense, especially going from a teenager learning about it to being an adult in this career and really taking this serious as this is the path that I'm going to take. This is the career that I'm going to take to help not only my community, but communities across the country that are similar to mine.
So again, you're listening to Healthy Conversations. I'm Garrett Davis, and I'm here with Beverly Berry with the Alzheimer's Association. And if you're wondering when you're going to get to the topic, I think it's important to me that viewers understand before Beverly starts talking about our topic. I want them to understand why she's doing what she's doing. Even though she gets paid to do it, there's passion, and you understand the reason behind. I think she's walking in her calling in terms she's in the right place, not just to help herself, but to help those that listen. And so, Beverly, how did you get affiliated with the Alzheimer's Association? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I actually have a personal connection to Alzheimer's and dementia. Maternal grandmother was diagnosed with dementia. We didn't have an exact type or form of dementia which she was diagnosed, but we knew that she had a form of dementia. They couldn't quite put their finger on it. And I just remember my mother and aunt taking care of my grandmother and just the struggle that they went through. And that was hard for them because at that time they didn't know about the Alzheimer's Association. They kind of piecemealed resources together to help navigate their caregiving role. And so before I came on with the association, I spent some time in the area of organ donation and transplantation. There are disparities that exist there. And through some of that work at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, we were able to bridge a few gaps there to make access a little easier in the state of Alabama. And then I started exploring, well, where are there other areas of disparities that are there? And so I looked into the Alzheimer's Association, especially after my personal connection, and learned that there was even more disparities there. So that's how I came to the Alzheimer's Association.
And so I find it unique that, I look at Dr. Hill, who's very passionate about his craft and about his calling and how he's, relating that to Alzheimer's. I find it very unique that, you're doing the same thing. How important is it for people of color to be in these positions when it comes to talking to communities of color about something like clinical trials?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Our Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Dr. Carl Hill, he's very passionate about this work. He's a researcher by trade. And so, and he identifies with the community. He's from Atlanta, Georgia. So I think that passion is naturally there, based on your environment and your upbringing, right? But when it comes to reaching communities of color, representation does matter. It bridges that cultural relevance, and that I come from a small town. I'm an African American woman, and people can relate to me in that way because of my experience. because I understand the culture and the needs of the community. And so when you're speaking with communities, even if you're a person of color, I think understanding the culture of that community resonates well with the members that you're trying to reach. So having that cultural relevance, compassion when you enter into the community, I think it's very important, but it's a benefit, it's an added value when the person that's delivering the message looks like the community that you're trying to reach. So there's power in that.
It is, and I think one of the roadblocks or stumbling blocks that we often run into is, in our profession of trying to raise the awareness of these health issues, specifically Alzheimer's disease in communities of color. And we start talking about research and clinical trials. It's the pause goes on because of the past history of that. But those that are listening and watching, I want the reason I had Beverly to go over her background. The reason I had Beverly talk about who she is because I don't want you to, even though she has a title with the Alzheimer's Association, on this program, we're just having a healthy conversation. Beverly's just Beverly. And she's using her job and she's using her experience to kind of add value to what she's saying. But I don't want you to look at Beverly in the sense of a person who's representing the Alzheimer's Association. I just want you to look at Beverly as an African-American woman speaking to you in that community of the same, telling you the importance of taking part in clinical trials. And so before we get into that part of it, Beverly, when we say Alzheimer's disease, let's kind of give a foundation when it comes to African Americans. How are African Americans affected by Alzheimer's?
Yes, that's a great question. So African Americans are about 2 times more likely to have Alzheimer's or another form of dementia than our white counterparts. And there's research that supports why this is the case. And of course, we don't have all of the answers. But what we do know is that African Americans are disproportionately affected by high blood pressure, diabetes. And these are all types of vascular diseases that can affect the blood flow to the heart. It can affect the blood flow to the eyes and the limbs. And so these are vascular types of diseases. They also can affect the blood flow to the brain. And when there's a lack of blood flow to the brain, it can increase the likelihood of someone developing Alzheimer's and dementia. So we have to be particularly vigilant in that we take on a healthy diet, that we exercise, that we do all of the things to not only keep our heart and our other organs viable, but that we also take care of our brain as well. So, but it's having that information and knowing that it's prevalent in our community, knowing that will allow us to become more knowledgeable and awareness on what it is that we need to do.
In terms of Alzheimer's disease, it's one of those diseases that I think it strips you of your dignity. I think, by and large, African American people are, I think, are proud people, and we should be. Therefore, we don't want our mother or father or loved ones to be seen not in their best light. Mm-hmm. And so Alzheimer's has a way of making us make decisions that I think personally aren't always the best. And so we'll hide mom and dad from the community versus trying to seek out help. And a lot of times when we seek out help, it's to the point where we can't take it anymore. And so how important is it for communities of color to get involved with the local Alzheimer's association even before someone's in their community or family has Alzheimer's?
Yeah, it's really important because the sooner the better. Because an early diagnosis, while it won't change the trajectory of the disease, I mean, Alzheimer's is a progressive disease that affects the the brain cells. And so having that early diagnosis won't change the trajectory. But what it will do is allow families to plan, whether it's financially, who's going to be the caregiver, so that it's not to the point that it's so overwhelming. Being in touch with the local Alzheimer's Association is extremely important because we have those resources. We have a 24/7 helpline available in many languages, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that number is 1-800-272-3900. So that's a resource. Our alz.org website is a resource as well. And then we also offer support groups, education programs that can really help people learn more about the disease and even recognize some of those early warning signs as well. Because the important thing to note, particularly in our community, is that Alzheimer's or dementia, it is not a normal part of aging. This is not something that happens when you get older. And I was one of those folks that thought the same thing. Well, when you get older, you start forgetting things. But it shouldn't be to the point that it disrupts your daily life or your daily activities. And I think that's one of the important things to know.
Yeah, alz.org is definitely 3 letters I want everyone to remember for this conversation. And I think I want to stress the fact again, don't wait until someone in your family has Alzheimer's disease or dementia. And the reason I say that is because for the first time in the history of the world, there are more people over 65 than under 17. And just by pure numbers for my mathematicians, at some point, we're going to be affected by someone in our household or extended family who's dealing with that. And it's best to get a jump start on the information, because a lot of times, again, when we jump into situations like that without any knowledge, without any experience, we tend to do the best that we can. And, that's just human nature. And so what happens is we don't even view ourselves as a caregiver. And before you know it, once we get fed up, then we start looking for help, and sometimes in all the wrong places. So Beverly, as there was a study that was done, and, we're finally going to get to it, but I wanted to kind of, we said all that to get to this point. I found it very interesting. And before we get into the study, I used to be guilty of saying that African Americans are unreached people group. Mm-hmm. And because it seems like we have to go through so much as organizations, as nonprofits, just to get the word out to the African American group. And then we have to do gimmicks like, free this, free that, if you come do this, we'll give you that, just to get the word out. And I began to, say, it is so hard trying to reach our people sometimes. And I've been guilty of saying that. But then I heard Peggy Dilworth Anderson say, it's not that we're hard to reach, but, we're not doing enough. And so just because I've been doing this one thing for 20 years, maybe I've been doing it the wrong way. And so it does seem like, it's hard to do. So a study came out that stated, racism has an impact on memory loss. And I thought that just made me go, I mean, and then I went, really? Is that for real? And so explain that,
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing data. And I think this is information that we've talked about really like at a surface level, because we didn't have a lot of data to really support it. But back in August at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference in San Diego, this is our largest research conference that we hold annually. Mm-hmm. And we have thousands of researchers from all across the country that really has a focus on Alzheimer's and dementia research. So whether that's reducing risk, developing healthy lifestyle, medications, all of the things, even looking at environmental types of research, it's there at the conference. Well, this year, there was data that supported that racism contributes to cognitive decline and lower memory scores. And so what the results from the data indicated is that over a life course, if you're exposed to whether it's interpersonal racism, so interpersonal racism is just you being you being a Black American in America, navigating your daily life. And maybe you're experiencing discrimination or biases on in your workplace, whether you're experiencing that when you visit a doctor. it's those types of events. And so what we found is that um, Black Americans experience more instances of racism, and they also had lower scores on memory tests and experience more cognitive decline than their counterparts. And so, what that says is that, of course, with racism, if you're experiencing that over the course of your life for being who you are, that's stress.
Mm.
And then when you think about just the stress that you have, let's take away not being Black in America. But when you take that stress away, when you take that away and you just account for work, having a family, paying your bills, all of that stress is on you for years. And so stress causes inflammation. And when you're stressed and you're developing the inflammation, it affects your body, and your brain is one of them. And so it really highlights that we really need to do more. That it's more than just accounting for having a healthy diet, exercising. That we also have to look at the social determinants of health. So where you live, work, and play. We also have to address access issues because there are a lot of health disparities and inequity gaps, not only in the Alzheimer's space, but in other spaces and illnesses and conditions as well. And so in order for us to be able to do that, we also have to discuss racism because it is those historical instances where communities that have been marginalized historically, it's the reason, it's the root cause as to why these disparities exist. And this data from this research is so important because it gives us the license to have deeper conversations about, well, what do we do about systemic racism? What do we do about unconscious biases? Because if I'm going to my doctor,
Mm-hmm.
my doctor doesn't understand me, they make a prejudgment before they even have had the opportunity to have a conversation with me, and I don't feel heard, I'm not going back to that doctor. And so we write off our doctors, and we suffer in silence. And so it again, it really speaks to our, even as the association, what we have to do to change the narrative. What do we do to help bridge the health inequity gaps, particularly in this space of Alzheimer's and dementia? And we have our work to do. And so partnerships are really important to being able to do that. But I'm so glad that we were able to have this data that really helps to guide our work in communities. And what do we do more strategically to bridge a health inequity and health disparity gap?
What advice would you give a family member who is about to take their loved one to the doctor to see if they have Alzheimer's or not? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I think individuals can do as they're preparing for that appointment is to take notes, write down any concerns that they have. If there are um, any changes in the memory or thinking that they may be noticing about their loved one, medications that they may be taking. Um, Write down all of that information and be prepared to have a conversation with the physician about some of these changes. I think also if the individual or your loved one that you're concerned about, if they're in a posture to provide um, information or questions that they would like to have the doctor ask, I think that's important as well. Um, but I think also, even if the doctor doesn't bring up memory loss or concern, I wouldn't wait on the doctor to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say that family members should definitely be proactive and asking for um, any type of test or memory exams that can be done or performed to help them get a diagnosis and to further understand what's going on with their loved one.
Before we get into our last conversation for the day, I want to piggyback on something you said. Taking notes, I think, is really, really important. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was to sit in a room with my mother and the doctor and talk about Alzheimer's right in front of her. Mm-hmm. And so I think when Beverly says take notes, because all day when you're at home, you know what you're going to tell the doctor. It's different when you get in that room with your mother and the doctor is asking things and you're looking at your mother and your mother's looking at you. Human nature takes over, and sometimes it's hard to say it in front of her. It's almost like, am I talking about my mother and she's right here in front of me? So writing those things down and sharing that with the doctor, you just got to make sure the doctor knows what's going on. Okay. And so, and don't overlook how difficult it may be to have those conversations with your mother or father in the same room with them as you're talking to the doctor. That was really hard for me. Now, my sister, who's the primary caregiver, she's able to do it. And I'm sitting there getting strength through her. So, which goes back to, there's no way no one person can battle this by themselves. You got to have someone in your family that's going to, help you out. And that's a whole nother conversation later. But Beverly, lastly, let's talk about vascular dementia. Because if we talk about African Americans and 2 times as likely, Latinos 1.5, I'm sure you get asked the question, well, what's the cause of that? Why are we, and we think vascular dementia may have something to play with that because of the whole health issue. So if you could talk about vascular dementia.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about vascular dementia because that is the most common form of dementia among African Americans. And again, it goes back to Black Americans being disproportionately affected by chronic diseases such as high blood pressure and diabetes. And so when you think about high blood pressure, your blood has to flow throughout the body, right? And so your blood flows to the heart, it flows to the lungs, it flows through your limbs, right? And so when you have that blood that's flowing, your organs, they work properly. But when you constrict the blood flow to the heart, you may have a heart attack. And when you restrict blood flow to the limbs, maybe it's due to diabetes or other type of vascular or blood type related illnesses, people can lose a limb because of diabetes. So those are just your heart, your various body parts, right? But we also have to take into consideration that blood flows to our brain as well. And so when you have these types of vascular diseases like high blood pressure or diabetes, it puts you at a greater risk for Alzheimer's. So it's those comorbidities like high blood pressure and diabetes paired with Alzheimer's that really puts us at an increased risk. Mm-hmm. Now, that's more so on the medical side that makes us at an increased risk. But then again, going back to access to health care, access to insurance, even access to healthy foods, these things play a part in our increased risk for certain illnesses as well, including Alzheimer's and dementia.
Beverly, thank you for being on the schedule today to have a healthy conversation about Alzheimer's and about just the importance of we as a people, not just taking part, but getting involved, but getting an understanding why we're taking part. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This has been Healthy Conversations with Garrett Davis. Thank you so much, and make sure to follow up with us on G Davis TV. We hope you enjoyed this new episode of Forget Me Not and our healthy conversation with Beverly Berry. Join us next Sunday for another new episode of Forget Me Not and a healthy conversation with Stephanie Johnson Monroe. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and access with Us Against Alzheimer's. To view other episodes of Forget Me Not, download the G Davis TV app on any mobile device, streaming on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. See you next Sunday.